Oh, right, access. So a lot of these buildings, especially the larger ones, access for the maintenance person. This is where the maintenance person has to climb to get up and down from this roof. So you can imagine if, and what he decided was to leave all of the weeds and the soil and everything up on the roof, and he actually created a compost pile on the roof because it didn't make sense to either throw it off the side of the building because it's in such an urbanized area, or to try and get it down this this ladder. This one doesn't have a ladder at all. You can see Dave's working away here. So he actually has to bring a ladder in, and I don't know where they keep it there, but they have to use this ladder to get up to the roof every time they want access.
And this ladder, I mean, we had extended pretty much the entire length of that thing, and it was rickety and scary when we went up that thing. It was, a big bending ladders that went all the way up this thing. And the other thing I wanted to point out, too, I think just from the residential side of things, is Tom and I have often thought about putting Ecoroofs on our individual houses, and I know I've got a fairly steep pitch on my roof. And I was thinking that, boy, if I was going to design it, I'd want to design it in a way that was as low maintenance as possible, because I know that I don't want to be getting up there often with a step ladder, or my wife doesn't want me getting up there often with a step ladder and pulling weeds and those kinds of things. Or if I have a very, very fussy design and then I look up there and, oh my God, there's something that's encroaching upon the lines that I created or whatever it might be. You want something that you could look up there and tolerate a little bit of difference and variety as it comes along, and then maybe go up there every once in a while, like Tom's talking about, and pick a few of those tree weeds and a couple of other maybe more robust weeds, and then just leave it alone. So I think, if I was the possibility of also who's the homeowner or the residents that's going to be living there, are they going to be interested in taking care of it? And then also, is there a possibility of just creating an external stairway on the outside of the house that might allow you to just walk right up to the edge of that rooftop and then get on? I don't think that would be prohibitively expensive, and I think it might be a good way to go. So anyway.
Yeah. One other thing about maintaining plants, there's a project that was over near St. John's, and the owner was irrigating it. Matter of fact, we showed a picture of it, the impact sprinklers. And he had a lot of clover coming up in the spring. And so somebody told him that he had to get up there and apply herbicide or something to get rid of that clover, or else it was going to take over his roof. And since I had some experience with clover on Ecoroofs, I basically said, it got a lot of water this spring. Don't water it. Just do not turn your irrigation on until late June or wait till July and kill the clover before, your sedums will be okay. So he did that. He didn't turn the irrigation on until late July, and by that time the clover had all died. Now, a little bit of it comes back every year, but that's just one of those maintenance things where once you get a hang of the timing of all this stuff, you can basically manage by timing certain things that you do or don't do, besides lots of other things like this. And then, these are other items. So I already talked about the rat that I didn't get to put in the presentation. This is not necessarily, and a lot of this, it's nice to attribute good things and say, oh, we hope this is happening because it's an Ecoroof, but rats and crows and pigeons in the urban environment are pretty standard wildlife for our urban environment. So these kinds of things are happening on rooftops to a certain extent. We don't know. Now, one thing that was sort of an obvious good thing, I think anyway, is that Dave and I and a couple of our colleagues, when we went to the O&M building and were standing there looking at the plants, about 50 feet away from where we were standing, a killdeer flew in and landed on the Ecoroof and started making kind of squawking and making noise. Well, that's pretty nice that a killdeer found the roof, and whether it was just finding it on that occasion or maybe it actually had a nest there earlier in the season, we don't know. We didn't find signs of the nest or anything, which would be gone now because it's fall. But that was kind of neat. So. Pest control. Yeah, we already talked about this. So just an idea, all of these photos are from this roof up here. So honeybees, hoverbees, bumblebees, that's a dragonfly right there. Those are really hard to photograph, and it took off, and I was trying to catch it, and it just went like this, and luckily just got that little image there. So, and it was just amazing. We've talked to some of our botanists, not our botanists, but our, what do we call those guys? No, the section that we have, they used to be ESA, Claire, Science Fish and Wildlife Group, that know, and they were just amazed that there were dragonflies and these wetland sort of species up on the Ecoroof. I mean, they were landing, and I'm sure they were eating. It was like going to Trader Joe's. They don't just go to, they don't just go to the wetland. They go to other places to find food. I assume. We haven't, but there's been a lot of discussion about bats, and I'm not sure. Anyway, and then damage. This is another item. So the air constantly blowing out conventional roofs. This roof right here, I was up here the other day, and it's starting to really get a lot of ripples in it. It was installed in 2000, so it's only 8 years old. This is the part of the Buckman building that does not have an Ecoroof. And then, of course, air conditioning condensate or drains that are not draining very well because they're not installed exactly perfectly. And as we talked about, mosquitoes. Now, this is something, if you have the opportunity to look at any photos of a project that you might be working on, this is the Portland Ecoroof the first year, and we had that snow. So everywhere you don't see snow is where the air vent with our 68-degree temperatures is blowing constantly as the snow is occurring and then melting the snow. So we have hot air blowing out here, hot air here, hot air here, a little bit of hot air right here, and hot air in this location that just constantly blows out. And this happens summer and winter. So summertime, it's actually 68 degrees or whatever we are inside is blowing out, as well as in the midst of wintertime. So those are important things to look at. And this is where we have, in most cases, trouble with these plants. And this is where we also have a lot of aphids. So we've got this artificial environment or microclimate that facilitates, in some cases, these pests that we're finding on the plants. So if we were to say, okay, get up there and spray with herbicide all the time, that seems like we need to figure out what can we do in these locations to get plants, and this is where the ice plant comes in, because the ice plant seems to be doing best in these locations because maybe it can take the wind more than some of the other species. And this is the, again, dry air, but the plants damaged and some dying. Well, I already just said it about the susceptibility of the, for instance, the different temperatures and what facilitates pests that might be in those areas. You can see here where this plant, you can't see it very well, but it's an ice plant that grew a lot in the wintertime because it's in a vent area, but then in the summer, we weren't able to water it enough to keep it alive, so it was dying back. And then this is the condensate. So we have a number of locations where we have air conditioning condensate, which then creates a lot of moisture in the soil, and we get a lot of moss and things. So we've got all these different conditions on this roof, and potentially a lot of projects, especially existing buildings, would have these same types of problems. Too much water here in the summer because of this or that, and these dry air vent areas, and then other things that, other things like this. So you don't know what the maintenance people are doing. You might remember this shot from last week where we were talking about pollutants associated with runoff. If this was an Ecoroof surrounding this facility, this mechanical equipment, whatever all this junk was, that's quite a large area of fluid, whatever it was that came out. That could be very detrimental, or maybe not, to the plants that might be up there if it was an Ecoroof. So there's just a lot going on with these different mechanical things. And, roofs in the past, we're sort of hopefully we're going into a new era, where roofs in the past were just, you didn't have to worry about much because it's just an old roof and that you don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. And, of course, a lot of people don't think about what goes down the drain, but we're into water quality and what goes into the river and things like that. So this kind of thing can still be going on. To what extent, we have no idea in the city. And then this, I know you've seen this 3 times now, but the point about this one is that the design here, again, they did not accommodate. So damage by design would be, wait a minute, is this under plants? No, it's under, so this is where, again, the damage, because there isn't any protection of the membrane here, and right on the edge here, the membrane is going up the side, but there isn't. So what do you do with that? How do you protect that membrane? And then damage by Dave. Oh, no.
It was broken, I
So,
swear.
no, Dave walks over and he thought he was pulling a weed and he pulled the irrigation riser off
It's a
there.
really tough tree.
He's a strong guy, I'll tell you. So if you need any maintenance of irrigation risers, call Dave.
I'll pull them all for you.
No, so somebody had been up there and it was somebody stepped on it and Dave found it. So
Well, and the best part was is that it had been placed neatly back into its sleeve, except it was kind of listing to the right. And
Right.
So don't think it would have worked terribly well after that.
there are a lot of people on rooftops that you don't even know. I mean, I went up to this anyway. It's lots of trades up there. That's another potential problem when you get into the pros and cons of irrigation. And one last thing about irrigation is that any irrigation system is going to, it's a system, and it's a mechanically constructed type thing, and it is prone to malfunction with time. So whether people kick it and break it off and things like that. So we really, is anybody from the irrigation industry here? Okay, so think about how do you start designing for this kind of environment, and some products are already there, but there's a lot to learn. And then I guess it's not the last comment about irrigation. So here it is. So this type of pipe, and we already talked about that. And this is just an idea of when these other trades are up on the roof. This is what they leave. Yeah, this is what can be left behind. So when we were working with Metro, this was all found within a 2,500 square foot area, and so these are all remains of pieces of things that deal with some kind of trade that was working up on the roof that just left this stuff behind, and it's just laying there on the membrane. Well, I mean, I gathered it and then from the membrane. And so so hopefully people are checking their drains now without an Ecoroof, but you should check your drains at least once a year. And if you're up there checking the drains in terms of your O&M plan, then tell them to check everything else. Check the plants, check the irrigation, that kind of thing. So at least inspect it once a year and make corrections. And if there's erosion, sometimes just something very simple like the air vents that are blowing in a certain area, you just put a thin layer of gravel on it. Now, if you have a very tight tolerance with regard to weight, you'd want to use like pumice, like red cinder or something like that, very lightweight material. You've probably lost some soil anyway from the soil, the plants dying and then the soil blowing off. And so another issue is what happens on the roof with regard to these other trades, and sometimes they can put things up on your Ecoroof that are not part of your plan, and I'll show you a picture of that